Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Ken 91 stop the threat that is Aaron Johnson. Speedy Dan Clark tried last week, but it seems so far that all comers can't just keep up with the fast Porsche Carrera Cup North America race winner. This time, there may be someone who might be able to go toe-to-toe with Johnson. We'll find out here in just a little bit. Also, another wrench in the plan. Will weather come into play? Welcome to historic Watkins Glen, where the stars and cars of the Kellymoss KLÜB iRacing Championship are racing live and in color on the Kellymoss YouTube channel. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're watching this broadcast. My name is Jeremy Scott. Tristan Herbst is alongside. Jim Cunningham is back in the truck, giving you the pictures and noises live and in Memorex. All right, Tristan, round 3. It's going to be a little bit lighter field because a lot of the team getting ready for the 24 hours of Daytona this weekend. But what we lack in numbers, we don't lack in talent. There's a lot of great drivers who are still out there trying to take practice.
Yeah, absolutely so. And like we mentioned, there might be a bit of a factor later on in this race in terms of weather. We can see that precipitation is sitting at a neat 63%. Unfortunately, there is no 100% accurate weather forecast here for you. So the rain might come early, it might come late, or it might not come at all. So the drivers have also been, prepped for that anything can happen, exactly like it is in real life. You can never predict it 100%, but regardless, we are here today at the Watkins Glen. The boot configuration, a very nice track if you've ever driven it before, and it really does suit the GT cars well. Obviously, we're just here today in the 992s, but I think it's still going to prove for some excellent racing.
Yeah, so let's talk about the point standings as we've had 2 races already. And, of course, the leader of them all is Aaron Johnson. He has a commanding 14-point lead over Blake McGovern in the pro standings. Caden Kelly and Lonnie Unser round out your top 4. By the way, Lonnie Unser with just 1 race under her belt. Griff Asplund was the only other driver who has raced so far this year. Still waiting on Erica Hoffman, Michael Clark, Ashley Freiberg, and Riley. If you don't come race with us, we're going to put you in the booth. Trust me, that's a lot of fun. Taking a look at our next class, we've got 4 classes. Of course, we're missing one of the classes because our VIP class is also in Daytona. There's our team standings. Ted Burns, your points leader, he's done quite well for himself so far this season with Carl Lemkool, Jacob Harder, and Nathan Warda, as well as Cameron Cool, rounding out your top 5. There's also also Donnie Leonard, who has logged points. The other three, Luigi Pugliese, Tom Dyer, and Mark Miller, not logging points. Tristan, let's take a look at our other two classes that we have tonight.
Yeah, we've also got our club members. So these are obviously the members who have some exclusive access to the Kellymoss team. And that's obviously Joseph Holman, who currently leads that in first. Anthony Castillo just a little bit further behind. And we saw Maxwell Fleerman rocking a brand new livery today. You'll have to see it out on track there, Jeremy. It's quite a specimen of work, I've got to say. But he currently sits in third with 36 points. And unfortunately, for the likes of Scott Star Wars, Chris Matt Miller, and Alex Vasquez, and Jens Hansen, down from 4th to 7th. They are not yet to score any points so far in the club championship. And then obviously we do have one more class, but there won't be any features of it today in today's racing, as they're all out preparing for the Daytona 24-hour. But we've got Ryan Marine still leading that charge in the VIP class. Peter McKay will line up in second. And then Dan Clark, who started racing only last week, is already up into third with 27 points. Andy Lee, Luke Hartog, and Sheena Monk, unfortunately, have not joined us yet for any racing. Hopefully, we might still see some action to come in the future rounds.
And of course, 3 drops is what you're allowed. And did you catch Luke's team name there? Come on, Luke. Come on. You're a Porsche stud. You can do better than that. I know why you did that too. All right, drivers out there for the 20-minute qualifying session so far. Aaron Johnson, once again, fastest. It seems like I can just play this on my mixing board here. Aaron Johnson fastest. Aaron Johnson on the lead. 44.301, the fastest time out of him and the rest of the class. Joseph Holman with a 44.911 sitting in second. That's fastest in the club category. Then you go to the team. Only have 3 classes here again tonight. Ted Burns in the 81. No shocker here. He is fastest.
Yeah, we usually see the top 4 is pretty common, like we've seen in the past 2 rounds. It is usually Johnson, who comes from the pro class. Holman comes from club. Burns will come from team. And then we usually see Clark last week around from the VIP. He sits somewhere in that top 4. So, I mean, it's good to see that the drivers are pretty consistent with their positioning. Here's Holman. He's now obviously been taken down to 3rd by Bowman, not to be confused between the two. So he's pushed himself up to 2nd for that team division, which is great stuff. So he's actually changed it up slightly. There's now 2 of the team members in that top 4. So we'll have to see how this event is going to turn. But for the time being, Jeremy, I think you've got to start getting that soundboard ready, because Johnson is once again on that stride up in front.
I'm sure everybody wishes that he was in Daytona this weekend, getting ready for at least the Michelin Pilot Challenge. And I'm kind of surprised that he's not, but he's got a full season of Porsche Carrera Cup underway. Well, you can be a club member here at Kellymoss, but also on February 21st, if you're nearby their headquarters in the Madison, Wisconsin metro area, they've got a Pinewood Derby going on, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's free for spectators, $10 per entrant for racers, and there will be free Derby cars available from the Kellymoss shop. Log on to kellymoss.com for more information. If you want to race, RSVP by February 16th. I may have to sneak up there and not necessarily participate, because it's for children of all ages, and they do mean all ages, but I've got to say, I don't know about you, Tristan, but my track record with Pinewood Derby was not the greatest. Yeah,
that's an interesting topic as well. But here's the man I was talking about earlier. That's Mr. Maxwell Fleerman, who sits down in 8th position. He's rocking a new livery here today for that division, which is great to see. Ted Burns moves up into 2nd, though. He's now countering Bowman for the team division and moves up into 2nd position now, which is great stuff for the 144.5. So 210s beating out Bowman, but unfortunately, they've got to work a little bit harder if they want to break that 4/10 gap to Johnson, who's pretty uncontested for the time being. They do still have another 10 or so minutes of this qualifying session, and so they're going to have to work really hard if they want to render something here against Johnson.
You have no idea what a Pinewood Derby is. I like how you just avoided that question.
Yeah, absolutely not. No. I mean, as a South African,
okay.
We've got no clue what that is.
Okay, so basically, you're given a block of wood. It's a small block of wood, and you have to kind of mold it to whatever you want. So whittle it down. They give you wheels. You put weights on it, and it's basically one long ramp. You start at the top of the ramp, and it's essentially a drag race, and the fastest one wins. That is that's basically Pinewood Derby.
That's pretty interesting. Okay, so it's like creating your own mini car and then racing it. It's actually quite that's actually pretty cool.
And Jim, our producer in our ear, saying, "Yeah, that's what they did. We did in Boy Scouts, and he won his Pinewood Derby." So,
I mean, we haven't done anything like that yet.
Take a. Winnie Boy 5 asked if there are any hamburger fans in here, and of course there's always hamburger fans. I'm gonna have dinner after this too, so I'm really excited about that. There we go. As Warda is on the circuit trying to set a flyer, 47.689, the fastest time out of the number 18 on the team championship. Ted Burns, 0.4 of a second slower than Johnson right now. That's your provisional front row. So 6 rows, like I said, 12 cars. I think we're going to be in for a dogfight in a lot of these positions.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though we're looking at a slightly smaller grid here today compared to what we saw last week's racing at Road Atlanta, it's still going to prove to be quite a hectic race in terms of what the drivers are going to do. In terms of on track. Obviously, Johnson, I have a feeling he's going to run away a little bit with this, but we've got Burns and Coleman, who are currently pretty contested in terms of lap time. Holman's also behind. And if you do remember last week's racing, those 3 were practically on top of each other in terms of challenging out on track. Obviously, Castillo's also up there in 5th. And so we might see him possibly contesting. Oh, that's another new livery coming in there for Cameron Cool. He's no longer a Cool Mint, guys. He's changed to some... That's still a pretty
he's a cool bit of some sort.
I mean, he's got some nice gold streaks all over the car, at least. Oh, yeah, that's a literal tic-tac. Okay. I know what tic-tac is. You guys don't have to pull me that down. Don't stress.
That's okay. The boss man came into the chat, said, "Come for the Porsches, stay for the Pinewood Derby." So, plenty of racing action. Whether it's a motorized car or I wouldn't say magnetic, a weighted down car to get it down faster. Fleerman coming down, more like a momentum car. Fleerman coming down once again, and I don't even want to get into Pinewood Derby. Let's just not bring back horrible memories. So right now, all 12 cars on the circuit. There's Lonnie Unser, her fastest time of 46.038. Of course, she's not used to running a GT3 on the track. She's used to running it up the Pikes Peak Mountain for the Pikes Peak time trial. I think she's going to be running the Pikes Peak race again. If you know the Unser family, you know how steeped in history the Unser name is for Pikes Peak, with multiple wins across multiple generations of Unsers, multiple Unsers. So it's no surprise here, and would not be surprised to see her running a GT3 car on an actual race circuit here within the next couple of years.
But with that, we've only got about 7 or so minutes left of this qualifying session, and we're slowly going to start to see a bit of track evolution over here. We might see a couple of faster lap times coming in as the track does start to rubberize in on that racing line. Obviously, the drivers will also... I can't remember. I don't think they've actually got a limited amount of laps here. I think they can do as much as they can in this 20-minute stint. As I have seen them going around track quite a couple of times. Here we are with Mr. Donnie Leonard. He currently sits in 7th position. Going around, he currently holds that 145.6, hoping to possibly try and improve it. He's got Lem Cole up in front, just ever so slightly. I mean, that's a 1/10 difference. So he is trying his absolute best right now to possibly improve that lap time. We'll have to see. He is coming slowly up towards that checkered flag line. And is it going to be an improvement? We don't see his staple down at the bottom, unfortunately. There it is there. So he is actually green through the final sector. And I think we're going to see an improvement here. Leonard, possible movement up ahead of Lem Cole. We'll have to see it as it refreshes. And I'm not sure. I believe he stayed, unfortunately. So that's where he sits for now. But he's still got time to try and make up.
Of course, Johnson once again raises the bar 44.069, the fastest out of all comers once again. With about 5 minutes left to go in this session, there he is at black number 25. We'll see if he can hit his 14X. I guess that's the lucky number that he needs to stay up front at Burns, second fastest, but fastest in the team championship, 44.559. So that's your provisional front row. You got to go back to fourth for the club members. Joseph Holman with a 44.880. Castillo not too far away from there. 0.3 of a second separate those two drivers. I think they're actually really close to one another right now on the circuit as well.
Yeah, 100%. So Holman is currently out on that on another flying lap. Unfortunately, you can see it on your staple down towards the bottom of your screen. Currently yellow through the first two sectors or so of this race. So no improvement there whatsoever for the number 94. But if he does get a final run here, that might be better through the final sector. Potentially an improvement on lap time, but unfortunately with the slowest other sections, I don't think it's going to help too much. Aaron Johnson sets a faster sector yet again. So we might be seeing another improvement for the driver up in first. It looks like he really wants to break into those 43s and be the only driver to break into the 43s. I think if he is the one to do it, I don't think anybody else is going to be able to do it. So we'll have to see. And he does improve. He goes to a 144.030. So improving by about 0.03 of a second and now 5.3 tenths ahead of Burns. So we'll have to see if he can do any better. I mean, he is ever so close to breaking under that 143 mark.
All you can do is just shake your head as he just gets faster and faster each and every lap. We're watching the number 67, Jacob Harder, going down the back straightaway, setting up for the bus stop chicane. Cool. With pit entry violation, he'll take the black flag, and that could be session over for him. But we're watching Harder make his way around 46.147, the fastest time for him, as he got that last time by. Let's see if Harder can improve on this time. A little bit of a wiggle there heading into the boot, and that's it.
Yeah, that's all you need to get it going around. I do see we've also got some guys in our comment section. We've got Jay Duarte mentioning that battle last week with Holman, Bowman, and Burns, and I think we can also remember that battle because it was probably the most highlighted battle around Road Atlanta. And I've got to say, I'm also excited to see if they can do it again because they're all three next to each other on the starting grid, unless things change in these final dying moments. But it is Burns to Coleman to Holman, and maybe Castillo gets involved with the rhyming chain here and possibly joins onto the backside. We'll have to see if he is going to join the entourage and try and challenge for second position. But only times are going to tell. Holman moves up into second, so he's now trying to prove himself. There we go. The times are just improving here.
Blake McGovern checks in to qualify. We'll see if he can get out there and get a quick flyer underway. He's not left the pits yet, not in the car, but still Donnie Leonard up to 7th overall, the 45.561. And Lonnie Unser on the 5th sector of this lap. Here comes Bowman. Bowman watching, not able to see the sector time, but still plenty of time for him to improve. Last time by with a 48.873, so not able to beat a 44.608. And we'll see what happens through the bus stop. And that's actually a pretty good line so far. I don't know if the sectors like it as much as everybody's running yellow. So I think we're at the point, Tristan, where the tires have reached their peak and they're starting to level off in this qualifying session.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll go through the colors as well. I just wanted to mention something. Holman beat Burns in qualifying here by 0.02 of a second. I just looked at it now. I mean,
wow.
The margin is ever so close between these drivers. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, talking about our colors at the bottom, I call them staples. I don't know why. I mean, it's kind of just because it's staple on the bottom of the screen, but it is indeed the sector times for the drivers. So you're looking at the bottom of your screen. You'll see that the driver's name, number, and current position. And that yellow marker on each of the sectors is, unfortunately, it does mean no improvement on previous time. For example, like Aaron Johnson, when you see a bunch of purple lines, it means there is a personal best, well, not even a personal best, a session best for that sector. And then green is a personal best. So here comes Johnson. He's going to set that 43, I believe. And indeed he does. 43.843 for him. up into first place he will go. And so, unfortunately, most of the drivers have gotten to that point of qualifying where they've exhausted all their tires, they've exhausted as much as they can do. And so there's going to be lots of yellow sections now towards the end. Not for Johnson, though, he's a different machine. And we've got a couple of other drivers who are setting some PBs, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Qualifying is officially over.
Yeah, Blake McGovern not able to get across the line to set a flyer, so he'll have to come from the back of the pack, and we'll get our grid here just before we get going, as we will have the 3-minute warm-up session to take place as drivers get ready for the session. And that was all you like I said, all you can do with Johnson is just laugh.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. But we've got a bit of a track map just to go around the Watkins Glen. If you've never seen the track from the skies up, or if you've just never actually raced the track or watched any of these cars race around the track, we've just got a bit of a demonstration what it looks like from aerial view. And I've got to say, one of my favorite circuits, definitely when I still used to race in ACC, which is unfortunately now completely killed off by LMU, but it was a great track to race. But here we go. This is the back. So this is the main straight. You can see there's the pit lane on the right-hand side, leading down to turn number 1, a very sharp right-hander braking zone, and you can run quite wide onto the curb on the left-hand side of that turn number 1. That turn number 1 then obviously escalates quite fast up towards turn number 2, the right-hander, and the gradient is extremely steep as it heads up the uphill towards the first main straight and up to turn number 3, back to turn number 4, and up and into that back straight section. You do see lots of cars going side by side here through this section, especially as they come up to the bus stop chicane, or otherwise known as the inner and outer loop. And so here it is, the inaugural bus stop. The inner loop starts. It's a sharp right turn and then a very fast flick back left. And if you do not manage the car's expectations there, you can unfortunately lose it left or right. So you do have to be very careful with that. Turn 5 is then obviously your outer loop that it transcends around. The drivers also have to be careful here not to exceed the track limits on the outside. With the curbing on the left, it can get a little bit difficult if you don't get it right. We're down towards the chute, turn number 6. It's a bit of a downhill section here. You don't want to touch the grass on the left-hand side. It will slow your car down a lot. Same with the outside of turn number 6. If you touch the grass, you're going to slow down a heck of a lot. We're to the toe, the hairpin that leads onto the final straight. And that's quite a high gradient turn. You also have to manage the car's back end. It can change with the gradient change. And up towards the boot, which is inaugural for this configuration, and turn number 8 being the heel. From the heel, we head back uphill towards turn number 9, and that's going to be your final couple of turning points as we head back to the start of this, at the starting line of this track. And turn number 9 as well, you have to watch out for the wall on the outside line. So you got to manage the speed and the traction of the car, not to pull it out too far wide. We then hit to turn number 10 and turn number 11, respectively. Again, all about track limits. This is a very easy track to get an off track, and you do not want that in terms of your incident points. Turn number 11 as well, there's a wall on the outside line, so watch out for that. And that then leads back onto your main straight, where we are looking at an average of about a 1 minute 45 race lap time. But that is your map of Watkins Glen, and I've got to say, I'm pretty excited to see what the Porsches can do around here.
I am too. Max Flairman checks in on the chat, says, doing my rain dance right now. He's one of only 2 cars who have their wet tires on as the warm-up is complete. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here, because the delta time for a 4-tire pit stop here on pit road, 40 seconds. So you can either start the race, and there it is. There's rain. Oh. So we are going to have a wet race. Aaron Johnson, Chris Bowman make up row 1. Joseph Holman, Ted Burns make up row 2. And Tristan, row 3 is Anthony Castillo and Carl Lemkool.
Yeah, Donnie Leonard will take 7th with Lonnie Unser down in 8th position. Maxwell Fleerman, 9th position for the driver who was literally doing his rain dance. And guess what? It's worked, because it's pouring out here now. Jacob Harder, 10th position, followed by Cameron Cool in 11th. Nathan Water takes 12th, and Blake McGovern, unfortunately not able to get a lap time, will be starting in 13th position. But this is going to be a great change-up, Jeremy. I think we're in for quite a race. We were looking at the 12-car grid, and we're like, this might get a little bit boring if something doesn't happen. And as you can see, something has definitely happened.
Everybody's on wet so far, with the exception of Lonnie Unser and Jacob Harder. So watch out for those 2. Do they decide to come into the pits? Remember, there is no full course yellow. It's green to checkers here. in the 30-minute race that is the Kellymoss KLÜB iRacing Championship. Well, the field will be underway here shortly, and indeed they are. The pace car bringing the 13-car field around, and Joseph Holman decides he's going to start from pit road. And knowing the downhill that you head into turn one, Tristan, I think that's a smart idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So especially with that rain factor coming in now, if the track does start to wet a little bit too fast, the drivers are going to have to completely change up driving style. Remember, they've been practicing and also qualifying in completely dry circumstances, and now they've been thrown right into the deep end. The starting grid is, they've have to turn the wipers on, and so it means they're going to have to change how the driving style is performed here around Watkins Glen. You've got to brake slightly early. You've got to watch out for those wet curbs, because wet curbs are probably the most dangerous thing in a wet circuit. They are literally the spinners of any GT car, and you have to watch out for them. And so we'll have to see how the drivers adapt to that.
As we mentioned, too, that, the walls are close. Yes, they are guardrail or Armco, whichever one you go by, but still, they are very inviting, especially in the S's. And, coming off that final turn, I can remember, what was it, 6-7 years ago, there was runoff there, but NASCAR decided to come in, throw the safer barriers on, and if one car bounces off another, it's going to make things a little interesting. Also interesting, while yes, it is raining, it's the surface for now is dry, not spotting. So, should that change, it's going to be a little treacherous for some drivers, and I think Holman has decided to go to dry. That's an interesting strategy. We'll see what happens here in the next couple of laps. Tristan, any final thoughts as we work our way through the boot?
Yeah, I got to say the dry choice might, the strategies, and it's pretty important because we're going to have to see how it's going to turn out for him. The rain is still quite light, so the track might be faster and more optimal on that dry tire for a little bit longer than what we're expecting to see. Obviously, you can see it on your screens. It's not exactly a downpour. Even from certain camera angles, it actually doesn't look like it's raining much. So, maybe Holman's put the right cards into play, but only time's going to tell, I guess.
So we will see what happens here. Now, remember, you've got Lonnie Unser and Jacob Harder sitting back there in 7th and 9th with dry tires. Rest of the comers, as Holman goes back to the wets, decides that that's going to be it. The wets are going to be a little bit slower than the dry, so it'll be interesting to see if Unser and Harder decide to make their way through the field, as we are just about set to get started after 30 minutes of racing here at Watkins Glen. It's been all Aaron Johnson all season long, overall and in the pro, but Blake McGovern and Lonnie Unser are coming to play. Chris Bowman, Anthony Castillo, front runners in the team and the club championship. They're both up front now. Pace car makes its way into pit road. Glad to have you with us on the Kellymoss channel as we are about ready to get set for 30 minutes of racing. Green flag is out. Here comes Aaron Johnson. We're about ready to go 3 wide with Bowman, Burns, and Castillo, 2, 3, and 4 heading into turn 1. And actually 3 wide behind there as well as everybody making their way so far through turn number 1. John Song opens up a 0.6 of a second lead already, and Unser already up 2 as Harder's up 1 in those dry tires.
Yeah, those dry tires are going to prove a little bit optimal. The track is dry, but like you mentioned, the wets will be slightly slower now. But as the track does start to wetten, it's going to be more and more difficult for Unser and the likes of Jacob Harder, who are currently on those dry compound tires. So they will have to watch out for traction in those coming stages, especially through the fast sections that utilize a lot of curb. When those curbs get wet on a dry tire, you've really got to watch out for step outs, especially in the Porsche with the engine being all the way in the backside. It can get quite situational, and you do have to monitor it. But so far, it looks like things have been pretty good here in terms of the first couple of sectors. Obviously, we'll judge how the first lap has gone once we hit that checkered flag line. There's still a couple more corners to come. Here's Unser, who's really showing the pace on those dry compound tires. I mean, you can see she is just taking more of a dancing line compared to the rest of the grid here and trying to find her way now around Castillo and push up into that top 5.
Joseph Holman's out of the pits, of course, with the pit lane start. Look at this pass here. The Unser goes into fourth. We got one spinner at the back. That's Leonard, who was spun backwards at the toe of the boot. And we'll see if he gets underway. Indeed, he does. Not sure if that was a single car incident or if that was a suggestion for a separate line. As John Song, look at that, 1.1 seconds as Lonnie Unser tries to catch up to John Song to get that lead. Right now, sandwiched in between Burns and Lemcool, and now she's going to dispatch a Lemcool pretty quickly. Something to watch out for here is when these drivers start to take the wet line. And of course, that's higher than the dry line because the dry line has a bunch of rubber, which is going to make things just a little bit slick. Leonard goes into the pits.
Yeah, into the pits he comes. I wonder though if he's got any damage. I don't think he does, but maybe he's choosing to. I actually don't know what the pit stop could possibly be for. I didn't see any contact against the walls. And I believe Leonard did indeed pick wets, but Lonnie Unser, second position now for the number 92 Porsche, and now trying to catch up to Johnson. Obviously, it's going to be difficult, even though she's on the dry compound tires. Johnson, just being a much faster driver, seems to have already found his pace on those wet compounds. And the real question is, when is Unser going to start to feel the drop off of pace? When is the car going to start to feel a little bit unstable, especially on the exit of corners, where those dry compound tires cannot find any form of traction on the highly rubberized circuit? You know, when rubber and water mix, it becomes quite slick, like you say, Jeremy. So we'll have to watch out what happens to Unser, but she is absolutely flying. And here she comes on the backside of Johnson. Up into first she goes. How far can she pull it, though?
This is the first time that somebody has passed Johnson, and she makes it look easy. Move Lonnie Unser to the point, and how long can she keep it? I'll tell you what, this might have been a fantastic strategy out of the number 92, as she has made her way to the point. Move Lonnie Unser to the lead, and she already opens up a huge gap over Erin Johnson. This is absolutely spectacular. The only thing that worries me is there were certain parts of the back part of the circuit were right there. You see, starting to spot just a little bit coming off that back end. But Unser 49.823. That 92 is on rails.
Yeah, and we were talking about that 4-second difference. It is indeed practically 4 seconds. She set a 49, and Aaron Johnson only able to set a 53. Cameron Cool going a little bit wide down into turn number 1. I'm sure that's unfortunately, even though there's quite a wide track limit extension there, I think that is going to be outside of that track limit. So there's a bit of an incident point towards the Tic-Tac driver. But here comes Anthony Castillo. He's currently defending against the likes of Fleerman and Holman a little bit further behind. And it's the battle of the blues versus the oranges, and you can see Fleerman is just trying to, flag himself over there and get past. Castillo is moving down quite slowly over here. It looks like he's struggling a little bit there to keep up with Fleerman and the likes of Lemcol up in front. That wasn't Holman, apologies. That's actually Lemcol, Fleerman, and Castillo. And so there's Lemcol. He's up in front right now on the number 95. Fleerman on the backside of him, and Castillo unfortunately dropped off completely in terms of pace here.
Yeah, Fleerman is your leader right now in the club category. There's your overall and pro leader, Lonnie Unser, 4.8 seconds, and she's just gaining time. If I'm Lonnie, I'm getting as much time as I can up at the front, try and open up as big of a gap because she's going to need it if she decides to come in pit. You've got also Jacob Harder, the other dry tire driver, leading your team championship right now in the number 67, and he's even got his sights set on the pro points leader, Aaron Johnson. But the rain's coming down a little bit harder. You're starting to see just a little bit more spotting, and Harder just tiptoeing his way around the circuit right now. He's still making his way around, but I'm not seeing a change in line like we would if the track was getting wet. It seems like there's certain parts of the track they're getting rain, where others are either getting light rain or nothing at all. So if I'm Lonnie or Harder, I'm staying out. I don't need it until the whole track gets wet.
I think that's exactly what they are doing because, we can see it here on turn number 1 and the main straight. It's looking quite wet already. You know, you can see the gust coming off the backside of those cars. It's pretty emphasized, but towards the other side, completely opposite side of the circuit, towards the boot side of it, and turn number 7, we're not seeing that much rain being built up. And so that's just allowing those dry compound tires to, reset, get all of the water off of them, and still be able to continue to pull traction around this track. And that's exactly why Lonnie Unser already 8 seconds of a gap ahead of Johnson. Obviously, she needs to extend that to quite a margin if she is wanting to pit for that wet compound tire. We're looking at, I don't know what the pit time is looking at, but it's well over 20 seconds that she's going to need to build if she wants to maintain that first position spot over Johnson. But if she can do that, I've got to say, she's got a good chance at finishing this race off strong. He has Mr. Maxwell Fleeman in 6th, and he's actually made his way past Lemcol now. He's also on the wet compound tires. It almost looked like he was on the dry compound tires. He's flying through this grid, I've got to say.
Yeah, he really is, and that delta is 40 seconds from pit to from pit in to pit out with a stop in the middle to get the tires changed. And yes, another spot where the rain's light or not happening at all. So either way, I think this might be a great call because now Lonnie's opened up a 10.5-second lead over John Song for the overall in pro lead. There's Jacob Harder. He is your team leader by about 1.7 seconds, and that's interesting too to note. While Harder's the only team driver on the dries, he has not been able to open up a big enough lead like Lonnie Unser has. Now, her times are falling off just a little bit, but not as much as John Song, a 51.022 out of Unser. John Song with a 55.471, but she's able to grow that gap by 3-4 seconds each lap.
Yeah, we're looking at Jacob Harder. His times are actually currently slower than Johnson's, and he's on the dry compound tires and Johnson's on the wets. But Lonnie Unser still last lap was 4 seconds faster than Johnson's time. So, she's doing an incredible job right now to extend that gap. I don't think it's going to last forever, unfortunately. We can see that gust of water is starting to become apparent on more and more sections of the track. And so eventually she's going to get to the point where she is going to be rained out on those dry compound tires. She is going to be forced to come and put on a set of wets. And there we already start to see it, the car stretching out wide through turn number 7 as she comes up towards that back straight of the toe and up towards the boot. And you can see that the tires will slowly start to lose grip here in the slightly more wet spots of this track.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about that. Yeah, because you get to this part of the boot, and it's not raining as much. It seems like that there's just that strip from the heel of the boot to the final part of the sector where it's dry-ish. I say that and I don't know about you, Tristan. Does it seem like it's lightening up in this area?
I gotta say, I don't know if it's maybe just the camera angle. I don't know if Jim's sitting under a tree there and his lens is just not picking up all the drops. But from turn 8 to turn number 11, I've got to agree with you. We're not seeing that much rain. From this angle, basically, we're not seeing anything. But there, obviously, it's a bit more apparent. But I do agree with you through that final sector, like you mentioned, through the heel, and I didn't see anything there, but through that final sector of the heel, I think it is a lot more dry compared to the rest of the track.
That was Holman with a little bit of a wiggle coming off of the penultimate corner as Fleerman has gotten around Lemcool and now has a little bit of breathing room to keep that club lead as it is. But Lemcool, Holman, and Castillo, man, they always seem to find each other as Bowman, he's way up there. Lemcool in that number 95, JFR 992 has opened up a little bit of a gap. We saw it earlier, it was down to 0.2 of a second, but that little wiggle that cost Holman about twice as much as that gap. So we'll see if he can catch up. Also, Bowman is caught up to Harder just a little bit. He's within striking distance, but too far away to make it happen. You see that he's bordering on a second to 0.9 of a second. So still, this track leads to some good racing for sports cars, as we mentioned. Also leads to some good IndyCar racing as well. IndyCar needs to come back here, but not holding my breath on that either way. No surprise we're seeing these battles actually really heat up here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're looking at the progression you have, Lonnie Unser. We're looking at 11 minutes into this race. So the first quarter has officially been completed. Her last lap time was still about 3.5 seconds faster than the likes of Johnson. So I don't know. Hey, she seems to have a pretty good strategy going here. Obviously, she's going to have to come in, I'd say, probably at the 16 or 17 minute mark is what I'm calling. I'm not too sure what you're predicting there, Jeremy, but now through this sector where we see Carl Lemkel around that final sector through the hill and turn 11, I'm seeing a lot more water gusting. And so I think the rain has officially started to move all over the track. And that's going to be slightly dangerous for the likes of Harder and Unser, as that wet line is going to become a lot more apparent than they would have hoped for.
Yeah, and the time's really starting to fall off on Unser, so yeah, I don't disagree. I'd say in the next couple of laps, Lonnie's going to have to come in and pit for wets, which unfortunately will put her tail end Charlie between Warda and Leonard. But Holman, tell you what, he's got a great run on Lemcool heading into the S. Is going to go to the inside. Going to get around for overall position. They're side by side through the S's as Lemcool's not going to let Holman have that position too easy as they work their way around. And Holman able to finally get around the out-of-class driver. So Holman now doesn't only has space between he and Fleerman for that club title, but Lemcool not going to make life easy on Holman as they work their way through the bus stop. A little bit of a jump there.
I think the craziest thing would be today, I personally, I'd love to see it, but if the rain could actually kind of start holding off here from this moment, and Lonnie decides to stay out, just maintain the car, hold it off, and sacrifice a bit of that lap times, forcing all the wet drivers to pit for dries as the track starts to evaporate. I mean, that would be quite incredible. I don't know if it is going to happen. I'm seeing some sun, but the raindrops are definitely not stopping just as of yet. And so that time, you can see it now, Johnson is actually catching Unser just ever so slightly. Obviously, it depends on the sector, but there we can see, and actually now Bowman has overtaken Harter for third position. So Harter is struggling a lot more on those dry compound tires compared to what Lonnie Unser is doing.
Well, I think it's a situation of Harder not having the experience of driving on a track that has differing wetness, I should say. Unser, who is a esteemed racer in her own right, she's raced in Spec Miata. As Harder comes into the pits, we'll see if I think he's done. He's going to throw on wets here. But Unser, she's racing Spec Miata. She's a race winner at Porsche Sprint Challenge Caymans. So we'll see what happens with that, see how long she stays out. But really, as long as she's gaining time, I think she's going to be okay. Castillo going to the inside of Lemcool. He's going to get that position. So now Lemcool falling off the pace a little bit. Looking at the lap times, no surprise. Here's Castillo able to open up just a little bit of time there on Lemcool for overall position. But again, that's an out-of-class battle.
Yeah, out-of-class battle indeed, but we've only got 13 drivers out here, so I guess the drivers are trying to make use of whatever they've got for a little bit of action here around Watkins Glen. So even though they're not fighting for a particular class, Lemcool is going to try and get past the number 42 and, have a little bit of fun with it as well. Pretend that it is for position, even though in class he will remain third, with Burns being quite a bit up ahead in between a couple of the club member drivers. So we'll have to see how that does turn out for the drivers here. We still have Unser. So she did have about a 17.2 second gap. It's now down to a 16.9, but last lap, she was still a second, actually a little bit under, but about half a second to 0.6 faster than the likes of Johnson. We'll see it as she comes across the line here as to what lap time she set, and then we'll cross compare that to Johnson. It's going to be a while until he comes across the line, but as Unser comes across now, we're watching it on the live timings tower, and that one that she just did, it was a 56.5. So according to Johnson's previous lap, it is now slower, and as you can see, Johnson is officially closing that gap.
Well, let's see what happens here. Closing just ever so slightly, but not enough. And running just a wee bit faster. However, if both of these drivers keep their pace, I don't think that Johnson is going to have an answer for Unser here. So if I'm Lonnie, I'm staying out there as long as I can because, look at the back straightaway. It stopped raining, so now it's a matter of time of getting these cars to dry off the track. This may have been an absolutely fantastic strategy call out of the young Unser driver. She works her way down into the boot, and it's not raining as much through here either, so the rain is indeed getting lighter. tighter. A little bit of a wiggle there. No surprise there, but still able to keep that car pointed forward, which is something you definitely want to do through this stretch. So everybody's kind of made their way a little bit of a gap. It's Unser, Johnson, Bowman, your top three. Bowman, your fastest in the team class. There's John Song sitting second, and that's weird for me to say, sitting second right now overall and in pro. You take a look at third place, and that is Chris Bowman in the number 91, the black and green. He's your fastest in team right now, with Ted Burns, your points leader in the teams, sitting about 2.5 seconds behind, but Burns has to hold off Max Fleerman right there as well, as Fleerman 9/10 of a second behind. There he is in the number 91. You got to go back about 5 seconds to Holman. That's Joseph Holman. He's been the front runner of this class as he sits in sixth. Anthony Castillo not too far away in seventh, so one wheel wrong, and Castillo is going to be all over the back of Holman, I should say. Is there's a lot. Yeah, Tristan, I think the rain's starting to dissipate a little bit.
Yeah, I think it is, but I'm noticing something. It's got to dissipate fast enough here for Unser. I mean, Johnson gained 2.3 seconds just that last lap on Unser, and he is starting to catch up quite rapidly now. He's found the pace on those wet compound tires, and unfortunately, he is obviously the much faster driver compared to Lonnie Unser. I mean, if we're looking at iRacing difference, Johnson's at 4,600 iRating, and Lonnie Unser is at 600 iRating. I mean, it's still incredible that she's out there in first, but what I'm saying is it's going to be a catch-up game here for Johnson. He's got the experience under his belt in the wet, and he's going to be chasing down now while the tires are starting to feel optimal. But I agree with you. If the track can become dry within the next couple of laps, it's going to convert backwards for the likes of Johnson. He's going to have to go pit. Oh, Ted Burns takes a lot of curb. But, I mean, my fingers are crossed here for Unser. I'd love to see her hold the lead of this race.
She is losing time to say the least, and there's a wiggle on Unser as she loses it through the toe of the boot, and that seems to be her Achilles heel through that section. Yeah, I know I made a bad pun, but still Unser with a little bit of a wiggle there, and that is so tough to try, even in the dry, to stay, planted, and thankfully she's able to keep going, but she's gingerly making her way. She lost about 4 seconds in that little melee.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate spin, and there you can see already Johnson is in the background, and that black Porsche, it's quite a menacing look, I've got to say. Even though it's just a plain black livery in the background, it does look quite scary as it starts to hunt down now on the likes of Unser, and it's down to 7.3 seconds. The question is now, is she going to stay out and hope that the weather forecast is on her side, or are we going to see her coming into the box? No, it is not that case. She does indeed stay out, and so I think it is correct. Obviously, we're not seeing it exactly how the driver's seeing it. I think she's got the best view in terms of how the weather's looking, and I think you are indeed correct that the weather is starting to lighten up, and so if it does start lightening up enough for her, she's going to be able to extend that gap yet again from Johnson.
And because of that wiggle, she went to a 2:04.5. We're watching Unser make her way through the S's. And so far, so good out of Unser, but yeah, she is just bleeding time left and right, and this might be the lap that if Johnson passes Unser, this will be the lap that we see her come in for wet. She's the only dry tire driver throughout this race so far. Makes her way around the carousel and sets up now. Let's see if how gingerly she gets through here. She's losing so much time. It's now down to 3.5 seconds that Johnson is behind Unser. And let's stay on board here. I want to see how she takes this corner, as I know it's been giving her difficulties all throughout this race. And she's just going to go a little high in that, I don't know, Tristan. She's taking it way too slow through here.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the main thing is we're already halfway through this race. 20 minutes has gone by. If Unser decides to pit now, she runs any form of chance of finishing in the top 5. Just because, I mean, look at where Harder sits. He was in third position. He then pitted for the wet compound tire, just struggling on that dry tire. And he's down to the last position of this race, even behind Leonard, who was obviously 45 seconds down with that spin he had earlier on. And so that's the exact same result that Unser's going to see. Does she stay out and try and just maintain herself up in that top 3? Remember, obviously, Johnson is a lot faster than the other drivers. She could possibly maintain that gap to the other drivers a little bit better compared to what she's doing with the likes of Johnson. Or does she pit and immediately be booted down to the backside of the pack? I don't know what I would do in the situation, but I mean, yeah, in my opinion, I would stay out and just hope that the weather starts to clear up.
It's starting to clear up in some spots, and yeah, I agree, because if that weather does clear up, you are going to see you're going to see these wet tire drivers just fall off, because they're going to have to find a different line and keep those tires nice and cool. And John saw within 0.6 of a second of Unser making her way through the bus stop. So yeah, this is just a big gamble on Unser's part, and I think that she's just better off letting Johnson go through, especially in the boot, because now she's the one who's in better position, because if something does happen, she can capitalize as they work their way again heading into the boot. Johnson's just going to try and do his best, and he's going to pounce right here, going to go to the outside of Unser. They're side by side, and he's going to back off just a little bit, but he's going to go high, pinch her down low, and Johnson goes back to the lead for the time being.
Yeah, I've got to say it was a bit predictable, especially after that spin that she had. She did start losing quite a bit of pace. Let's see if she can stay in the slip, though, and possibly hold with Johnson as long as she possibly can. That'll give her the best chances of staying away from Bowman in third position. Because if that weather does dry, she has got the best chance out here currently to win this race. It's going to mean that Johnson and every other driver on this grid will have to pit for those dry compound tires once the track dries quite fast, and that obviously depends on the degree to which the rain does stop. Is it just going to start to drizzle? Is it going to completely cut off? Nobody is gonna know, because obviously the weather forecast it's like a real life weather forecast. You don't 100% know what's going to happen up until it does happen. So, I mean, Unser, she's playing a great strategy over here, but it is a difficult one to try and stay motivated.
It really is. When we take a look at a replay with Cameron Cool coming around the heel and heading into back out of the Grand Prix circuit, just goes a little wide and ends up spinning right into that tire wall.
Looks like he actually just avoided it. I'm not too sure if he clipped the spoiler there, but from the looks of it, I think he might have just avoided the backside of that Porsche landing up in an Aramco barrier. That would have been rear end damage, and if you've ever done wet weather racing with any form of aero damage, it's a pretty deadly combination to not have a good race after that.
No, it really isn't, especially here where you do actually have some straightaways to work with as the field working their way around yet again. We're just about 15 minutes left to go in this race, and Aaron Johnson once again proving why he's oh so good as your pro points leader. He's he's gaining now 5.5 seconds ahead of Lonnie Unser. Of course, he was 2 seconds faster on the lap because Unser kind of tiptoeing her way around the track. No harm in that, but yeah, if I'm Unser, I'm staying out and hoping that the weather forecast ends up changing. As now that lead up to 6 seconds with Johnson and Unser, but we're watching Bowman all over the back of Unser. Harder with a slowdown penalty, so your top 5 are close to each other as Bowman knocks on the door of that second place overall. Burns and Fleerman. I tell you what, if Unser leaves that door open, she's going to let those 3 in quite quick succession as your team leader tries and gets under the rear wing of Unser through the final turn where it's raining just a little bit harder. Unser's going to go and take the normal line. She's going to go low, and I think she might let Bowman, Burns, and Fleerman by, but Bowman going to stay in that draft of Unser. The battle for 4th heats up between Burns and Fleerman side by side through turn 1 as Bowman now makes his way into 2nd, but Burns and Fleerman, they're locked in their own battle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got to say, I really do respect the different approach that Unser's taken. She's really turned this race from being, the ordinary race where she might be contesting in the mid pack, and she's completely turned it around. She's had her glory light there of being up in first position, and obviously that can completely switch up, and she could be back in that position if weather circumstances play into her effect. Getting very close now with Burns behind. He is trying his absolute best to get past Unser. She'll have through all these sections, she's going to be a lot slower. And they're almost going around on both sides of her, boxing her in a bit as she is just trying to maintain that gap. And unfortunately for the likes of Burns, he's actually lost out now to Vleeman a bit, as Unser is just defending and trying to keep her post as much as possible. Vleeman's gotten past. Burns cannot get past her right now. He's probably going to find it in the next couple of corners without hitting into the backside of her. Remember, she is a lot slower at corner entry compared to the wet drivers. And so we'll have to see how this is going to turn out. But we're almost at the 30-minute mark, and then it's just 10 minutes that she's got to hold on to.
Be fine. I'm not too worried about that. She works her way, goes a little wide, and that's going to give Burns a chance to try and make something happen. As Burns going to look to the inside, think better of it, stay line of stern behind Lonnie Unser as they work their way back onto the main circuit. A little bit of a wiggle out of Unser, but Burns still content with staying behind Lonnie Unser. Oh, that was close. Almost ended up in the engine bay of the 92 of Unser.
Yeah, that could have been the complete end to the strategy. Unfortunately, with the dry compound tires, even the slightest tap on the rear would completely unsettle that car and would just send it into a spinning frenzy. Very difficult as well to maintain, and it will absolutely cook those dry tires, making them even more difficult to control in this wet weather circumstances. So I do hope nothing like that happens. I hope Burns can get past quite clearly. And to be honest, if I was Unser, I would let him go at this point, because the more she slows down there, it's just creating a bit of a train behind her now, and it's a lot more pressure for her to try and maintain. But yeah, I think this is going to be the best opportunity. Oh, and it's actually going to be the likes of Holman, and it looks like Burns is just being done in here almost with the likes of Unser, and even more defense coming from Unser. He's getting very angry as Holman is now on the backside of him, and there's a little bit of contact, I believe, and Ted Burns has now gotten ahead.
Well, that was also a case where Burns had plenty of opportunity to make something happen. And I think shoving a driver out of the way when you're a team member, that's not the best of all options. But Burns knows what he's doing sometimes with being obviously being an engineer. But Burns now trying to hold off Holman for that overall spot that dumps Lonnie Unser to 6th spot, as Holman goes a little wide through the boot, and there goes Unser. So goes from bad to worse for Unser. I have a feeling that this is going to be the end of the line. Holy cow, as Lemkool barely makes contact with Unser, but I have a feeling Lonnie might be coming into the pits.
Yeah, I unfortunately, I just don't think the weather has played soon enough into her favor. And the issue with this is that I feel like there's going to be a bit of a Murphy's Law. She's going to come in to get those wets on, and we're looking at probably like the 33rd minute. It's going to start to dry up, and then it's going to be a whole regret thing from her side. But the thing is, I think she's gotten damage now from slightly tapping that barrier, and so it means that car is going to be even more unpredictable to control in this wet weather race. Those dry compound tires at this point are practically ice skates, and so one slightly wrong angle into a corner, and it's not very easy to control. But actually, she stays out. She decides she's gonna go continue. But here's the pass from Ted Burns. And I mean, Jeremy, you were just mentioning it's a little bit of a push and shove here from him.
Yeah, a little rough. Let's see what happens from the overhead view. And yeah, you know what? It was a case of Lonnie just wiggling, and Burns had nowhere to go. So, but still, Burns had problems going into the bus stop. So we'll see if he incurred any damage either. But Burns and Holman still locked in battle as Unser's making her way up through the S's. Look at this battle between Burns and Holman. They were side by side going into the bus stop. Burns able to get through, and let's see if Holman has anything for Burns as they are still side by side. I don't know if I'd be on the outside of the boot. I don't care who's driving, because in these wet conditions, the boot is super slick.
Yeah, especially because it's like one of the lowest spots of the track, so the rain is indeed starting to pool a lot faster than it would on the higher spots of the track. And so trying to go around the outside line, that's practically dipping those tires completely underwater. And I've got to say, a great job there from Holman as well to maintain the car. It's a very difficult feeling. And I imagine a poor Lonnie Unser there in the dries trying to do that on a non-optimal line. That line is extremely wet, and those dry compound tires are probably feeling like a pretty hard mission. Leonard is actually out of this race. I'm not too sure what happened with Leonard, but he's 2 laps down, and into the pit lane he goes. And he actually had a bit of an incident, and I'm not too sure if we're going to replay with that, but I think Leonard is officially out of this race.
Well, here's that replay that you asked for, and it was heading into the boot, as we mentioned. That's just a slick area, and yep, just that back end. Wanted to see what the front end's looking at, and
Ooh.
takes off the bumper, and that was race over for Leonard. As we go back to the action for fourth place overall between Burns and Holman. I'll tell you what, Holman's putting his nose where I necessarily wouldn't in this wet, because one wiggle, yep, like just like that, you're going to end up making some contact or ending up in the wall. The two drivers making their way side by side through the S's, as Holman almost gets there with Burns, but he's going to tuck in once again. Burns with the defensive line through the heading in the bus stop. He says, if you want it, you're going to have to take it on the outside.
Yeah, and forcing him to the outside is just basically a strategy to keep himself up ahead. Lonnie Answers had a bit of a situation. She's pulled herself into the pit lane. But I was talking about it. If you force the driver into the wet line, you're continuously giving yourself the more optimal line around the track here. But now he's actually sacrificed it a bit. Joseph is on the inside, and he actually almost got ahead there of the likes of Ted Burns. Great job from himself as well to keep it on the wet line. And you can see Joseph is also starting to get a little bit frustrated here as he's trying to make his way around. But I believe Ansa has unfortunately had a moment in the walls there. She's down to 12th after being towed back to pits. We'll get a replay of that. And unfortunately, a great strategy comes to an end there for the young driver, as just wasn't meant to be. The weather did not play into her favor. Was it coming into turn number one? Was it on the exit possibly? Coming onto the big curb, and indeed it was. It's the wet curb, and absolutely slams the front side of that Porsche into the wall.
Yeah, that wet paint does not mix with the race car. So Unser, her fantastic strategy is done with that. We'll see if she can get the car fixed and head back out there for just some laps. Holman losing a little bit of ground, but still closing in on Burns heading into turn number one. But I think that Holman's going to be holding station here for the time being, waiting for that next opportunity. I know that he tried to close in here the past couple of laps on Burns, but Burns, I'll tell you what, since that incident with Unser, he's really turned up the wick, and while he's wiggling now, every now and then, Holman, I take that back, might actually have another opportunity as he goes to the outside of the S's, and he's better off just sticking there, because Burns is going to force him to the outside, and Burns with a nice little defense, they touch, heading into the bus stop, and Burns keeps the position for the time being.
Yeah, Burns is really showing that aggression to keep his positions. Yeah. I mean, even our producer in the background saying he's been a little bit aggressive yet today, and I think he's really trying to keep that fourth position spot. Obviously, second in class. I don't think they're going to have enough time to catch up to Bowman in second, but for the time being, he's got his hands full in any case with Holman behind, and thankfully behind them, it's nobody. So for the time being, it's these two in no man's land, and they're fighting it out with each other. And it's so far looking like it's our only battle out on track. Everybody else has spaced themselves out quite evenly. Johnson's 8.5 seconds ahead of Bowman as well. So for the time being, it's up to Burns, Mr. Theodore Burns Racing Team, the number 481 in fourth position. What can he do to hold? He's broken slightly earlier, and now it's up to Holman looking up that inside line. Is he going to be able to make it stick? Coming up out of the boot and back up towards the normal circuit configuration. Unfortunately, not enough, and he gets booted back behind the likes of Ted Burns.
You like your racing. It's nice and wet here. And let me tell you, rain is a great equalizer, but Burns tried to hold off Holman for position. Look at the inside. Burns shuts the door on Holman, heading down into the final turn as they go down the straightaway. Once again, it's Burns. It's Holman, as this is now side by side again, as Burns is going to try and hold off Holman, shut the door, but Holman gets a foot out there. They're nose side by side with Holman getting the nose out front. He's going to take the position. Can he keep it through the S's? Again, this is not for class battle. A little bit of a slide out of Burns, so he loses a bunch of time, but Holman able to make his way up to fourth.
Yeah, great overtake, and now he gets to do the same thing that Ted Burns is doing the whole time, is just blocking that optimal line. And oh, what a dive up on the inside. Oh my goodness, he almost clubbed the that wall, and that's going to be a slowdown. He completely took the grass. That was a 100% a corner cut, and he's going to have to give that one back. A little bit of an unfair jump there from Ted Burns. And fortunately, for the likes of Holman, he is going to get a little bit of a back giving here, because I'm not going to lie to you, that was a little bit courageous from Burns.
That was absolutely fantastic. How much of the grass did he get as he goes, oh, now I don't think he gets much of the grass as he got some air heading into the bus stop and still able to not only keep the position, oh, man, what a fantastic view. Yeah, I thought he clipped the wall there, too. They're still going side by side through the boot. Here comes Holman, and he gets fourth place. But how long will that last? I don't think it'll be long if Burns has anything to say about it. As they're quarter to quarter, going around the circuit once again. We just have about 2 laps left to go of racing. So still plenty of time for anything to happen between Holman and Burns. This is the race of the race. As Burns, you see how close he is to Holman, losing a little bit of ground going into that final turn. But Holman, he's going to hold him off so far.
Yeah, let's hope they can give us a little bit of time to talk here before they decide to attack each other again. Lonnie Unser has come back out on track in the dry compound tires. So I think she's just trying to challenge herself a bit, yeah, see if how long she can hold the traction on those dries. But it's great to see her coming out. With most drivers, unfortunately, after a spin or a race not going their way, they do tend to pull it into the pits and not finish the race. So it's always one of my mottos in racing is if you're gonna start a race, try and finish it, especially if it's an endurance event. And it's great to see Unser's back out on track for this 40-minute sprint and trying to challenge herself in those dry compound tires. She's still going to get that finish marker at the end of this race. But this is the main battle. Ted Burns has now lost it to Holman. The question is, can he stay behind and close enough behind the number 94 to where he can contest the blue Porsche again? Only time's going to tell. He is dropping off though, getting a little bit slippery on the curve there from Ted Burns, and now it's up to 0.8 of a gap already for Holman.
Still plenty of time for Burns to close in as he spins it. Oh, that's not good. He spins it, and Burns, the battle is over. He almost gets hit by Castillo, and Lemkool goes around. So we'll talk about unlucky from Burns. He probably used up all of that luck in the last time by, going through the bus stop and not hitting anything, as Carl Lemkool now jumps into second in the team class, with Ted Burns falling back to third.
Yeah, unfortunately there for Ted Burns, he gets overtaken by his teammate, and he's got quite a bit of damage on the backside of that Porsche. It's quite dented in, and unfortunately for him, his luck has run out. I think he was pushing a little bit harder in the rain, and it did indeed come back to strike him, and he completely lost the car there through the... unarguably, it's the place where we've seen a couple of drivers. Well, obviously Unser lost it, and now he's also lost it, down in that bottom of the boot section where all the rain is puddling up, and just not being able to control the car. So now the main battle is actually with Castillo and Lemkool as they progress around the track for fifth. But we've got 1 minute left of racing here, possibly one more lap to go, and that is it. But for the time being, it's been yet again uncontestable for the second half of this race. Johnson, 10 seconds of a gap to Bowman.
Well, I think, running those dry tires early on, it was smart enough for John Song to, try the wet tires. But still, Lonnie Unser, you got to applaud her for getting out there and trying the dry tires and sticking with them for the most part until it went sideways pretty quick. 20 seconds left to go in this race. Here comes Lemkool closing in on Castillo. That's an out-of-class battle between the two of them. But still, that's a battle for fifth place overall as Lemkool closes in through the carousel. He's going to try and take on Castillo. He's sitting in second place in class. But one wrong move and Ted Burns is going to make his way up to the front. But nonetheless, it's Aaron Johnson coming onto the Grand Prix circuit for the final time at speed. Gotta say this, there's something about this kid. And if you're watching see what he can do in Porsche Carrera Cup, well, guess what? I have a feeling what you see in the simulated life is what you're going to see in real life this season. Around the final quarter, Aaron Johnson makes it 3 for 3 here at Watkins Glen. Checkered flag is out. He is your pro and overall winner yet again. Got to wait 10 seconds for the team racer, but there it is. It is Chris Bowman who comes across the line, and he'll take the win here at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, great stuff there for the team driver Bowman, and Fleerman obviously takes the win there for the club members in third position overall. Holman will take second in Div, and Castillo will take third in Div. Obviously third, fourth, and fifth overall. Lemkool comes across second in that team championship, sixth overall, and 10 birds after a very unfortunate spin and losing out there to the likes of Holman. He does fortunately still come across the line in a podium spot in his division. And I've got to say, even though Ansa has down in 12th, she's actually still third overall in the pro class. And so that's going to be some good points for her, nonetheless, of being 12th overall. So exactly what we're meaning about just finishing the race. She's still going to get some nice points on the board. And overall, I mean, I'm appreciative that the strategy was played. We got to get some insight as to what this car does. And, maybe for some future tracks now with the rain, we can kind of start to predict what's going to happen in terms of the control of the car.
Yeah, I enjoyed the fact that we were able to see what happens in the wet. And now that we know, you and I can actually analyze it just a little bit better. Waiting on Warda and, Cool right now, so Cameron Cool yet to come across the line as Lonnie Unser crosses the line, and that's going to be a race for her. And our final racer is Cameron Cool, 10th place overall and 5th in the team class. Oh, we can take a deep breath after that one because, like we said, in spite of the numbers, it was an absolute banger of a race once again. No surprise, as the drivers of Kellymoss all know how to run. Aaron Johnsong wins by almost 11 seconds over Chris Bowman, your team winner. That's Max Fleerman sits in third, your club winner. Joseph Holman, Anthony Castillo, and Carl Lemkohl round out your top 6.
Yeah, Ted Burns takes second after that unfortunate, takes third overall and after that unfortunate spin in 7th. Third in class, 7th overall. Blake McGovern takes second in class, 8th overall. Nathan Water takes 9th. Cameron Cool down in 10th. Jacob Harder, 11th, and Lonnie Ansa, our dry challenger, in 12th position, but 3rd overall. And finally, not finishing this race, unfortunately, is Donnie Leonard down in 13th position. But I agree with what you said 100%. Even though we had 12 drivers, the Kellymoss KLÜB iRacing Championship, these drivers know how to give us a show. No matter if it was 5 drivers, if it was 8 drivers, we would still have something to talk about because they all try and contest for the maximum amount of points here.
Well, let's bring in our club race winner, and for the first time, it is none other than Max Fleerman. Max, first of all, congratulations. We always say that rain is the great equalizer, but it's got to feel good to win here at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had such little experience on this track in iRacing. I've done it in a few other sims in prototype cars, but almost no experience in iRacing. So I was like kind of a toss-up. I didn't get a lot of practice in. All I ran was the mock race last night for 20 minutes and then this session. So these are the first 2 sessions I've ever run in the rain on iRacing. So that was a little overstimulating.
It has to be, especially with the changing conditions, because it seemed like midway through the race, there were the parts that weren't rained on were getting rained on and vice versa. So I would imagine the track conditions changing was a little bit difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. The track conditions were something I wasn't accustomed to, particularly out of the first section of the uphill. There's a lot of water that collects on the typical racing line there. I just shift up early and keep it pegged and keep her going. I started on rains for the race, so I was like, the tire temp will come in the next few laps, and ideally rain will start to really pick up at that point, and my bet will pay off.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because almost everyone decided to play the same bet you did. Was it looking at the chances of rain, or was it the threat of, well, if I got to come down pit road to get wet, I'm already losing 40 seconds?
Yeah, that was a big part of it. This pit lane's pretty tricky because you got to go around the corner before you get in there. So it's not like Road America or some of those other tracks where it's a pretty straight shot. It's pretty easy to get the car slowed down in time, especially on a wet surface. So I was like, 1, let's just play it safe because a pit stop is 40 seconds. But 2, it was also one of those things where I did dry wet yesterday in the mock race, and I was very uncomfortable on the dries. I actually kind of like how oversteery the car gets and how pointy the nose gets on the brakes on the wet tires. So I actually kind of favored it for my driving style.
Absolutely fantastic. A great race for you. And now you've joined us here in Victory Lane. We'll see you next week.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
That's Max Fleerman, your winner of the club class. And I'm going to go ahead and let you decide who you're going to talk to next.
Yeah, I'm going to take the man that jumped in first over here, Mr. Joseph Holman. Joseph, welcome into the commentary box. You're live on Apex Racing TV. And I mean, congrats on the second position in class. Talk us through a little bit of this very wet weather race here at Watkins.
Geez, first missing the start because I couldn't decide on whether to take wets or dries, solely because it was raining enough for the dry tires to be not that great towards the end, as we saw with Lonnie, but not good enough for the wet tires to kick in until the end. So it was a really hard toss up where I didn't think it was a good idea to make a pit stop in any of the situations because it would have taken too much time on pit road to change tires. So that gamble that I was fighting, like the angel and the devil on my shoulders screaming at each other, and by the time that I made a decision, I missed the start.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, how was the traffic management starting from the pit lane? You obviously had to pull through quite a couple of cars to get to where you finished.
Yeah, towards the back, it wasn't necessarily too bad until it started to get really aggressive with Ted towards the end. Until I was able to put a little bit of elbows out to get around him because we were going back and forth for quite some time, and I'm sure patience was growing thin between us.
Yeah, that was my next question now. I mean, just talk us through that battle there. I think from our perspective, it looked a little bit like it started getting aggressive from Ted's side, but obviously you'll have better insight being the driver fighting for that position.
Right. Getting a good run off of turn one was kind of the plan, the battle plan, and then try to get a good run up the S's onto the straightaway before the bus stop to be like fully clear of him. And that one time that I was like, okay, this is good. I'll be able to take my line normally. And in my mirror, there's a car that just lunges straight through. I I don't think I would. I don't think I have the capability to make a brave move as that. But I mean, it was a good fight overall.
Yeah, great stuff. And I mean, our final question is: anybody you'd like to thank or anybody you'd like to mention before you head out the commentary box?
Just all my friends and family has been supporting me throughout sim racing. That's pretty much it.
Incredible stuff. Nice, incredible stuff. Well, thank you so much for joining us today in the commentary box. We'll see you next week at Circuit of the Americas for yet another race in the Porsche 992s. Have a great evening or day further.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, and that was Mr. Holman. We've got a couple of guys ready for interviews.
Yeah, we'll do our overall winner, and then we'll round things out with our team winner. And well, Aaron, he did it again. What is there left to say?
I don't know. That one was a little bit different than the others. So
Yeah, let's talk about that because obviously you lost the lead to Lonnie Unser, but it seemed like the more her lead went on and grew, the wetter the track got, and her gamble just kind of didn't pay off in the end.
yeah, I wasn't sure how that would play out. I don't even know why I defended her whenever she caught up to me because the pace difference was so big. I was kind of banking on the fact that it would keep raining more because I looked at the forecast and it was a pretty high percentage. So I was like, all right, bring on the rain. And if it didn't come down harder, she was just going to walk away with it.
Exactly. So let's talk about how dry. I'll start with this. How dry was the track early on? It seemed like that it was actually not too bad.
It was pretty dry to start out. I was actually going to start the race on dries. I looked at the forecast. It was like 0% for a little while, and the track looked dry. And I was like, well, it's going to rain later on, but I could build enough of a gap on dries to stay on those. But right before joining the grid, I saw rain coming down, and I was like, well, it's not going to stop. So I went ahead and put them on and just dealt with it for a little while, hoping that it would keep picking up, which it did.
And of course, for you, this is about the distance that you'll get a Porsche Carrera Cup race. So kind of gives you a little insight on how these cars will handle when you have the changing conditions from a dryish racetrack to a wet racetrack.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good practice for me, and it's really cool to do it with so many people that are related to Kellymoss in some way. But fortunately, whenever the time comes, I won't have to be the one to make the tire decision.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong there. All right, let's see what happens next week. Good luck. Any plans for the Rolex this weekend, by the way?
I'm going to sit back and watch it, and hopefully I'll be part of it, in the next few years. But I'm just going to enjoy the races this week, and yeah, super happy to be on with you guys. Thanks to Kellymoss and everyone involved for putting this on. It's been really cool to bond with everybody.
Yeah, and you don't need to worry about bump drafting here tonight or tomorrow. So congratulations. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Aaron Johnsong, of course, also a multi-time MX5 Cup champion. So, doesn't have to worry about the draft here at Daytona. All right, Tristan, going to give you our team race winner here, Chris Bowman.
Chris, you're live on the on the air here at Apex Racing TV. I mean, congrats for the win for the team championship. Just talk us through how that race went.
Thank you guys. First, I just want to thank Victoria and Andy and you guys for putting this on, everybody at Kellymoss. Really fun deal to be a part of. Found out about it late, missed that first round, but hopefully I'll take advantage of the drops and be back in it. But great race, probably one of the best ones I've driven in a while there. Don't have much rain experience, to be honest, so I didn't know what to expect. Turned out great.
Yeah, we're talking to Aaron now just before. I mean, what was the transition like from the start, obviously, towards the midsection when it was raining quite hard? The start was pretty dry. So, I mean, what did what was the car's change of feelings like?
It had me worried there for a little bit. Lonnie kind of blew my doors off and then drove off into the sunset and had me questioning my decisions for quite a while. But it turned out halfway through it came around. The car honestly wasn't bad. It just kind of squirms around a little bit and you just drive it to the limit until it turns, and that's about it.
Yeah, incredible stuff. And obviously next week around we head to Circuit of the Americas. How are you feeling for that in the 992?
To be seen, I guess. Not many laps around there either, so maybe we'll put in a couple this week. It's going to be a busy week getting ready for the SRO season. I'll be actually up at Kellymoss next week, which will be great for me. First time seeing the shop. So do some work up there, maybe get a couple laps in when I get home. Maybe not, we'll see.
Incredible stuff. Well, I mean, thank you so much for joining us tonight in the commentary box. And like I said, we'll see you next week at Circuit of the Americas.
Yep, thanks guys. Great stuff.
All right, and that was I believe, our final interview for the night.
It really was, and what an absolute fantastic what an absolute fantastic race. I think we're going to end our interviews here because we're running up against time. But what are your final thoughts, Tristan? I think once again that these drivers prove that they can handle anything.
Yeah, absolutely. It just proves the Kellymoss Club Championship that the drivers really do know what they're doing, no matter the division. They always prove some form of great racing, and I really do, again, just respect to those drivers who challenge the dries on the wets, and just changed up the overall look and feel of the race. That's obviously Lonnie and Jacob Harder. And it's unfortunate to see that things didn't turn out their way, but they still put the foot forwards and tried the challenge. But yeah, I got to say, I'm looking forward to Circuit of the Americas. I don't think it's going to be raining as much as it is here at Watkins Glen, but the drivers really did prove themselves.
It won't be raining as much and definitely won't be as hot as it normally is for a race weekend in Porsches at Circuit of the Americas. Looking at the drivers chat, Lonnie Unser, she's really bummed, took a gamble on dry tires. Turns out the radar is remarkably accurate. The iRacing rookie not doing too bad. Anthony Castillo, I was struggling. Yeah, that was everybody out there. Nonetheless, an absolutely fantastic race. 13 drivers. Hopefully you'll be able to watch what the Kellymoss drivers can do this weekend for the Rolex 24 weekend, where they will be competing both in the Michelin Pilot Challenge on Friday and the 24 Hours of Daytona on Saturday. You can watch it all on Peacock, or you can listen to it on the IMSA Radio Network. If you're outside the United States, you can watch it on the IMSA channel on YouTube. Thanks again for watching us here on the Kellymoss channel. Again, Circuit of the Americas this time next week. Alongside Tristan Herbst and our producer, Jim Cunningham, I'm Jeremy Scott. Always remember to keep it pointed forward, especially in conditions like this. Keep it between the ditches. Yep, that too. And always keep it greasy side down. We'll see you next time on the Kellymoss channel.